All right, good to have everybody with us today. We are doing our study of Revelation. Going to continue that. You know, back to the sermon, I remember talking to this Christian several years ago. She was probably 95, 96, 97, kind of discouraged and struggling with her faith. I remember her telling me several times about dealing with her secret sins. And I thought, you're about 900 years old. How can you have secret sins? But it dawned on me that Satan doesn't leave us alone, not until we leave this planet. And that thought has always been in my mind about that. And I think it's so easy for us to think, okay, when we deal with temptation, that's just a young person's problem. Sooner or later, I'm going to outgrow the devil. Or the devil's going to look at me and say, you're so old, I'm not going to fool with you. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. So that's just an important thought, and that's why I kind of worked that lesson to kind of look at that. So today we're going to do something kind of special in here. We've been announcing this for the last couple of weeks. We are going to do what's called our midterms, okay? And somebody asked me, if we flunk, do we still go to heaven? But we have gone through the first 12 chapters of Revelation. These midterms really cover the first 11 chapters. And they do really two things for us. First of all, it helps us to, because where we're going now, it's really going to get some deep stuff. Our questions for Wednesday night, chapter 13, are out there. I encourage you to get that and be working on chapter 13. But we're going to start getting into beasts and all kinds of things. We'll get into Armageddon and all these things. And it's real easy to kind of forget the front end of this book and get all confused. So one reason we're doing these midterms is to try to keep it before us. But the second thing is, when this is done, you're going to have this sheet, and this is going to be a short overview of the first 11 chapters. Now, I won't talk about every particular verse we've looked at, but what it will do is it will kind of give me a good picture of what this is about. And so guess what's going to come when we get done with our classes? We're going to have finals. Okay? You just know it's coming. It's going to have finals, okay? But that's okay. That's okay, because we're going to walk you through this, and this is going to be helpful for this. And so, visiting with us, glad to have you with us. If you don't have a sheet, they're in the back. Let's get some of those. And what we're going to do today, we're just going to walk through these. And if you didn't get time to get this done, that's okay. And we'll just kind of work on this together. So let's just jump in this. Question number 1. The title of this book is Revelation of Jesus Christ. Why does that matter? Why does that matter? Okay, this is not John's idea. This is from Jesus Christ, number 1. Number 2, as we said in our first class, this is a revelation singular, not plural. What's the big deal? Well, if you make it plural, then you think, okay, there's more visions coming. There's more stuff coming. When we get to the end, that's the end. Revelation 22 is the last of inspiration. So this is a revelation, not shuns, okay? And that's just something. Number 2, the first 3 verses of the chapter 1 identifies what 3 important aspects of the book. Shortly take place. It emphasizes the timetable, okay? Says that a couple times there. It will say that in the time is near in verse 3. Verse 1, the things which must shortly take place. Again, as we get to the last chapter, chapter 22, he's again going to say those statements. So number 1, this tells me a timetable, okay? That's important. A lot of people. Now, you know what the newest twist is in the book of Revelation? Elon Musk. He's in the book of Revelation. I think, are you serious? Are you serious? But yes, for some people it is. It is. There he is. He's one of those beasts, okay? And he's just wreaking havoc. Well, if you put on Elon Musk sunglasses, you'll see it. But if you keep the flow from the very beginning, you understand, okay, these are things that must shortly come past. What's the second thing the first verses tell us? Okay, Craig? Who it's from, but also who it's to. Yeah. The audience is the 7 churches of Asia. The 7 churches. That's who it's addressed. So when you read this book, you have to look at it through that eyes. So I'm living in 1st century Asia Minor, and I got this letter, and the interpretation is Elon Musk. I don't even know what that is. I don't know if that's a food, a plant, an animal. I don't know what that is. So you see, that doesn't make any sense, does it? And so when you look at this, it has to be looked at through the lens of who first got this. And that's what's so important. Third thing that we learn? Yes. Communicated or signified, which means this is a symbolic and visionary book. One of the dominant words in this book is look or see. Come up here and see. So again, as I illustrated in our very first class, this is like a kid's picture book. And there's a lot of pictures. But these pictures are in words. So John is seeing this. And he's told, what you see, write down. And that's what this is. So that tells us right there the nature of the book, the audience, the timetable. Very, very important. Now, when people don't look at these first few verses and they want to jump into chapter 20 and talk about 1,000-year reign and all this and that, let's go back to see timetable, nature of the book, who it's for. That's very important to do that. Okay? Number 3. The purpose of Revelation is to okay, Jesus wins really is the theme of the book. Jesus wins. But it's written to encourage suffering saints. This is not a thesis on world events. This is not a look into the telescope. This is what's going to happen in world history down the end. It's really a lesson to encourage suffering saints. Overcome, used a lot in this book, how important that is. Okay? Number 4, the number 7 seems to be associated with God. Identify the 7s in this book. What did you find? 7 what? Let's just speak them out. Okay, 7. Tanner, say that again. 7. Oh, 7 lampstands. I'm sorry. 7 lampstands. Somebody said 7 churches. 7 seals on that book. 7 trumpets. Candlesticks. Bowls of wrath. That's coming up. We haven't quite got there, but we're getting there. 7 spirits. Yep. Peals of thunder. 7 peals of thunder. You notice that over again? I don't think that's just coincidence. I think he's telling us something. 7 seems to be God's number. And that seems to be connected there. And so when we find all of this, I think it's kind of running a little thread through all that. And as we introduce the book, number 5, chapters 1, 2, and 3 really are introduction. Tells us the background, tells us who it's to, John's setting, and all that. The vision begins in chapter 4. John's invited to come up to heaven. There's a door open. I will show you what must soon take place. So from 4 through 11, it's quick. Lots of things happen. And it's easy to miss the overall theme by chasing little rabbits here. So what we do in question 5 is we're just kind of giving the highlights. What's chapter 4 all about? What's chapter 5 all about? Lots of things are in there, but if I had to sum it up in a phrase, what would I come up with? So chapter 4, I'll just tell you that one. John sees God on the throne. He's invited up to heaven. The door is open. He sees God on the throne. Yes, there's 24 elders on little thrones around him. There's 4 beasts up there, or creatures. There's lightning. There's a rainbow. Lots of that stuff. But the main thing is he sees God on the throne. Okay. Chapter 5. What do you got? Okay, there's a sealed book. Who holds this book? It's in the library. It's in the hand of God. And the Lamb of God, Jesus, takes the book out of God's hand. Worthy is the Lamb is a phrase that's used in chapter 5. No one was found to open it. The angel called out with a strong voice, come up here and take the book. No one was found in heaven on earth or under earth, until the Lamb of God took the book. Okay? So he takes this book and it has 7 seals on it. Okay? What does that mean? If the book is sealed up, what does that mean? Again, they don't have books like they do. We do today, but it would have been a scroll like this. I can do this, right? And it's all rolled up, and there's seals on it. As long as there's seals on there, guess what? You can't read it, can you? Nobody knows the message. So starting in chapter 6, Jesus starts opening up the seals one by one, and guess what? I'm going to be able to read this message. That's what happens. So chapter 6, we have 6 of the 7 seals are opened. We see the rise of opposition. We see the cry for justice. And again, we could go through each one of those specific seals and talk about things, but that's kind of the overview. Okay? Starts off with a white horse. And that will be one of our questions here in just a minute. We'll talk about these different colored horses, but they all mean things. But overall, what we see is there is a rise of opposition. God knew it. The saints were living it. They recognize that. So that was chapter 6. Chapter 7, what happens? Yeah. God's people are identified or marked. That's where we get to 144,000. So what happens in chapter 6, we have 6 seals. We got 1 more to go. But before we open number 7, there's what we call an interlude, chapter 7. Because the next seal is going to be the answer to the prayer, why don't you do something? Saints have been killed, why don't you do something? God's going to do it, but before he does it, he's going to take care of his people. So in this chapter, chapter 7, is the sealing of the 144,000. If there happened to be 144,001, old Charlie didn't make it, did he? What are we to make of that? What if there was more than 144,000 people? Some didn't make the boat? No, that's not literal. That's the answer. That's not a literal number. That's the answer, okay? Again, if we're going to start making it to exactly 144,000 and there's one more guy, sorry, you missed the cutoff. No, because if that's literal, we got to go all the way back. Everything else is literal. A star from heaven is going to fall to the earth and kill a third of the people. No, if a star from earth hit the earth, there's no more earth. That's astronomy. Ain't going to happen. Our sun is one of the smallest stars out there. And even if our sun hit the earth, there's no more earth. Okay? So it's not literal. That's the answer. What is 144,000? It's representative of God's people. God knows his people, and he sealed them. Okay? Okay. Number 8. What happens in chapter 8? Okay, before the 7 seals are open, we got one more trumpet, don't we? The 7th trumpet, or excuse me, the 7th seal's open. I'm sorry, you're right. The 7th seal's open, but with the 7th seal, now we got 7 trumpets. It keeps. You see how these chapters are connected, and they kind of flow one to the other. And so we have 7 trumpets. 4 of the 7 trumpets are going to blow. Each one of them has a message. Okay? And basically it's various judgments on leaders, on corruption, on the earth. But what we have is no more seals because they've all been opened, and we got 4 trumpets. Now when you read that, that tells you, okay, there's got to be 3 more trumpets. That's right. That's right. That's how these chapters are like puzzle pieces. They all fit together here. Chapter 9 is trumpet 5, trumpet 6. They sound. And the abyss is opened up. And out of the abyss comes these weird locusts. And they just cause turmoil upon the ungodly. It's like where sin takes you, where corruption takes you. Doesn't make society better, it makes it worse. And that's what we're seeing here. So ungodliness, the corruption. It's just like they opened up the box and out it came, and it just fled upon all the earth that way. Chapter 10, John is given a little book, and he's told to eat it. And we read about two witnesses, and they prophesy. They're kept alive until the message is over, and then they're killed, but then they're resurrected and go to heaven. So really, chapter 9 has two things: John eating a little book, and the mission of the two witnesses. That's wrong, isn't it? I'm jumped ahead there. Excuse me. There you go. Follow your notes, brother. Okay? So chapter 10, John's eating the book and told to go preach what he ate. Chapter 11 is the two witnesses. Chapter 11, they complete their message, and it's the seventh trumpet sounding. So we're done with the trumpets now. And the kingdom of the world becomes the kingdom of Christ. That's a significant message. So if the kingdom of the world became the kingdom of Christ, Christ is victorious. Now in a sermon today, Satan tried to give that to the devil. The devil tried to give that to Jesus. Bow down, worship me, and I'll make you the king of kings. Jesus became the king of kings, but by God's message, God's way, and not these others. Okay? Number 6. What three things was John a partaker of? Chapter 1, verse 9. Okay, that's 1. Kingdom, number 2. Perseverance, number 3. By being a partaker in tribulation, it meant that John understood what his readers were going through. It's not like I'm sitting over here in Hawaii having a good time drinking my iced tea and y'all just over there suffering. No, I am a partaker in this as well. Significance of the kingdom is the kingdom is here. Huge part of Revelation 20 is the idea that a lot of people believe that Jesus is coming to establish his kingdom, reign for 1,000 years. It's called premillennialism. How can that happen if at the very beginning of the book John says, I'm in the kingdom? How can the kingdom come if I'm in the kingdom? See? That's a problem. And there's a lot of other passages that kind of talk about that, okay? And that's why it's significant, okay? Number 7, the 7 churches. Which church was dead? Sardis. Dead, but he gave them the hope of repenting and doing what's right. Okay? Which church had an open door? Philadelphia. But before you, a door which no one can close. What opportunity we think with that. Which church lost its first love? Ephesus. First love is probably what? What do we think first love was? Jesus. They were going through the motions, doctrinally straight, but they had no heart, no passion. Okay? Which church was Antipas a member of? Pergamum. What happened to Antipas? He was killed. Named him by name. He was killed. He was one of the early martyrs there. Which church was tolerating Jezebel? Thyatira. Oh, wicked Jezebel. Which church was lukewarm? Laodicea. Okay? So, when we get to question 8, we get to chapter 4. We see up in heaven there are these living creatures surrounding the throne. One has the face of a lion, an ox. Another has the face of a man. Another the face of an eagle. What do those things represent? What would a lion represent? Courage, bravery. Remember Wizard of Oz? Cowardly lion. Okay? Can't have a cowardly lion. Okay? Ox would represent strength, power. Okay? Man, intelligence, wisdom. Eagle, speed, swiftness. Now, those things surrounding the throne of God. You're down here on planet Earth and you're going through hard times. What's in God's toolbox? Swiftness, like an eagle. What's in God's toolbox? Strength, like an ox. What's in God's toolbox? Intelligence, like a man. Bravely, like a lion. You see that? So again, to think, okay, we're just a pitiful little group of people here. What can we do? You got God. That's the answer. You got God. And look what he's got. And I think that's the idea behind that. Okay? Any thoughts, questions on page 1? Okay, everybody good? Okay, page 2, second back side. In chapter 6, as the seals are opened, we see 4 horses. Light years ago, they used to talk about the 4 horsemen of Notre Dame. You ever hear that phrase? 4 great horsemen of Notre Dame. And they've used that phrase in football to talk about 4 great players or something. So in this, the seals are open, we see 4 horses. What might they represent? The first horse was a white horse. Victory. Also, spread of the gospel. Purity. Okay. This horse went out with we're not told who the rider is, but he has a bow, and his mission is to conquer. He's not killing, he's conquering. Jesus conquers us. Spread of the gospel. Followed by a red horse. What might that represent? Yeah. Which means what? Opposition. Wherever the gospel went, came opposition. Starts first in the book of Acts with Jews, then becomes the Romans, which we're dealing with here in the book of Revelation. But wherever the gospel went, came those who resisted. John 3, men loved darkness rather than the light. Black horse. Mourning. I think also economic hardships. That it's in that little phrase there where it talks about quart of wheat being sold for a day's wage, a denarii. So it's mourning, it's hardship, blackness. Okay, really easy to make this one death, but we know the next one is death because the rider's name is Death. Hades is following him. So the pale horse, or some translations use ashen, colorless in the sense that something's not right here, is death. And again, that's what they're following here. That's what they're seeing here. Well, the gospel came into this community, we became believers, but then we find resistance, and things are getting hard. Antipas and others of us are being killed. Okay, God knew the message, and that's what's kind of going on before them. Number 10, in the 5th seal, under the altar, we find what? Yeah, I'm hearing it. Yeah, the souls of the saints. Souls of the saints who have been killed because of Jesus Christ. Martyrs is where we'd get that word, okay? Our English word witness in the book of Acts, we are witnesses, actually comes from the word martyr, okay? And so they had been killed. Being under the altar is the idea of a sacrifice. They had been sacrificed. And so that's following this flow of these horses. They obeyed the gospel, there was resistance, there was hard times, and then some of them were actually killed. So under this question 10, what were they doing? Praying for justice. Dead, but alive, weren't they? That's a neat little phrase there. They had been martyred, but they were praying for justice. And that's going to be the flow of what happens here. Will God answer that prayer? And the answer is going to be yes, in His time and in His way. What happens between the 6th and the 7th seal? It's chapter 7. It's the interlude. It's the sealing of God's people. So the prayer goes up. Okay, we've been killed because of you. It looks like Rome was win. This just isn't right. Why don't you get justice? You are a just God, book of Psalms says. Why don't you do something? I will. Oh, I will. But first, I got to take care of my people. And so I'm going to do that, chapter 7, the interlude chapter, by sealing them. 144,000 on their foreheads. Again, not literal. Don't go walking around looking at somebody's forehead and say, oh, no, that's not literal. It's not literal. It's symbolism. It's the idea that God knows who His people are. Right now, God knows who's with them and who's not. Okay? And that's what that means. So, number 12, I just answered. The 144,000 are what? They are the sealed people of God. You are sealed. Okay? When you said yes to Jesus and were baptized, you became sealed. God knows you're one of his. Well, I took a bath today. I got nothing on my forehead. No, that's right. You don't. It's not literal. Don't go there. You see, again, once you start going one toe into literalness, you gotta go all of it. And pretty soon you just get crazy, wild messages. And you're going to start seeing Elon Musk. And I don't want you to, okay? He's not here, okay? I'm sorry. He's not here. We had I do have one elder in here. We had an elders budget meeting a while back. We're just doing budget. And I told him, I said, Elon Musk is coming. We're going to do some cutting here, okay? All right, number 13. What was the first woe? The locust. It's found chapter 9, verse 12. So an angel is allowed to open up that abyss, and out comes smoke and just comes out of that. Out of that come these locusts. And they're not like regular locusts. They're not eating plants. They're eating people. They're not killing people, but they're tormenting people. So bad that people say, kill us. They'd rather die than be tormented by these locusts. All of that, again, is symbolism. There's not going to be any real locusts come around chewing on people. But what they are is representing the corruption of society. We see that. You just let people go as deep as they go. There is no bottom to hell. And people will do anything, say anything, and do anything. And so once that door is opened, and so what's interesting, the locusts do not hurt the people of God. How do they know the difference? Because the chapter before, God sealed them, and God's allowing only this to happen to those who are not his. What was the second woe, number 14? They're holding back. I think they're holding back the wrath of God, and they're going to release it. Found chapter 11, verse 14. Okay, and that again is involved with that. So number 15, again, we've kind of touched upon this. What came out of the abyss? Out of the abyss came locusts, and what are they, and what do? They're just wreaking havoc on the ungodly. It's wickedness gone abandoned. We could just say, just wickedness without any control. And when you remove God, somebody's heart, you remove God from a church, you remove God from a community, from society, it just drops. And that's the point of that. Things do not get better, they get worse. Number 16, what's the difference in the book in chapter 5 and the book in chapter 10? We've had two books, but there's some differences. So tell me about the book in chapter 5. What do we know about that? First of all, it's sealed, isn't it? So nobody can see the message. What else do we know about that book? Writing on front and back. No one could open it until Jesus, the Lamb of God. Okay? That's the book in chapter 5. It was in God's hand. Okay? Now, we come across what's called a small book in chapter 10. The text says that. It's a small book. And what do we know about it? It's held by an angel, not God. So there's a difference, isn't there? What's another difference? Is the book in chapter 10 sealed? No, it's open. See, that's a contrast, isn't it? Because chapter 5 book is sealed and no one can read the message. Chapter 10 book, it's open, which means the message could be read. What's another thing we notice about the little book? Okay, before that, John was able to take that book. He was told to take the book. Okay? Now, chapter 5, we're talking about the throne of God. Who's going to go up right up to God and take something out of God's hand? No, I can't do it. You can't do it. Only Jesus could do it. Here, John could take a book out of the angel's hand. Okay? And then he's told to eat the book. Okay? And, yeah, look ahead here. Okay, we'll get to that in the next question here about the outcome of that. So by eating the book, what does that mean?
The sweetness of it is he's inhaling the word of God.
Okay, yeah. So we'll talk about the sweetness and sourness in a minute. But he consumed the message, and then he's told to go prophesy. So this message is yours now. You've eaten the message. Now go tell somebody. Okay. You ever talk to somebody and they've eaten a whole bunch of garlic bread? I know what you ate. How you know? I got it, man. I got it. You're sharing it with me, right? And that's kind of what John's doing. You're eating this book, but then you're going to share it. You're going to prophesy. Okay? That's the idea there. So then to Tanner, 17, the message of John 8 was sweet and bitter. What does that mean? Sweet meaning tastes good. It's like coming to my office. The little kids come to my office all the time now. They get my M&Ms, okay? Why do they want the M&Ms? Because they're sweet. They taste good, okay? So it's a sweet message. But then it becomes bitter in his belly. What does that mean? Okay, hard to be accepted, Craig? Yeah. We're still connected to that sixth seal with the dead martyrs under the altar and a cry for justice. This is part of that message. It's sweet because it's the gospel of Jesus. But it's bitter because part of that message is the wrath of the Lamb. If you don't obey God, you're not going to make it. So the message is sweet, has blessings. Message has judgment and justice, and that's bitter. And that's kind of how we see that. Okay? Where are we at? 18. In chapter 11, identify the journey of the two witnesses. I might have not been real clear as I wrote that. Their mission was to prophesy. They were protected while they prophesied. If anyone tried to kill them, they would slay that person. Again, symbolism here, but the idea that the message was protected. Once they delivered the message, they were killed. And the ungodly rejoiced. Dead. Message no more. After 3 days, they were resurrected. Almost sounds like Jesus. And then they're taken to heaven, and there's a rejoicing in heaven. So the journey is, in essence, God had this message, and he protected his messengers until it was given. That's the message. And again, we see that in our Bibles. What in the world would have happened had all 12 apostles been killed? Boom, right then. God had no B team. There was no secondary apostles. That would have crushed the kingdom. But how is it that Paul, as one of the apostles later on, could be beaten with rods? He was shipwrecked 2 times, in prison. They threw rocks at him. He was stoned, yet he was alive because God was keeping him alive till the message was delivered. Now, the trickle-down message. If God can do that to his abused apostles, he can take care of you. Okay? Now, your life may end. That's okay. But this kingdom, what you're a part of, it will never end. Satan cannot crush this. And so that's part of that message there that they were to kind of see and hopefully try to get that. Number 19, what is significant about 11:15? Who's got that one? That's it. Jesus is victorious. 11:15, the kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ. He will reign forever and ever. Do Caesars reign forever and ever? No. I've been to Rome. It's not a world power anymore. Nope. So that's the idea behind all that. Number 20, the great city, 11:8, is called Sodom and Egypt. What's that supposed to mean? We think of Sodom, we think of what? Immoral. We think of Egypt, we think of oppression. Okay, they were crushing the Israelites in Egypt. And so the great cities called Sodom and Egypt, it's immoral and it's oppressive. Okay, what city is being talked about there? Rome. And again, a Roman getting this message, he doesn't know what Sodom is. Egypt, he's heard of Egypt. He doesn't know much about Egypt. But the people of God, man, the Bible stories come to their mind. Man, they would have thought of those things. Okay? So that's kind of the overview. I hope it's helped you a little bit. Stick this away somewhere so later on you think, okay, what was all this? It'll help you kind of do this. And then, Lord willing, Wednesday, I heard we're getting more snow. Okay, but hopefully we can be together Wednesday and onward with chapter 13. We're going to keep working through this till we get to the end, and then we'll put another sheet and do this one more time.